Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Strange Pathways. I am your host, Scott Mort. I hope each and every one of you within the sound of my voice are just having the best time of your lives. I hope it's been a beautiful week for you. It's been a good week for me. Busy week. Very busy week. I know there's about 10, 15 people that I have to get back to. Believe me, if you are hearing this, I am working on it. Thank you for being patient for me. It's very appreciated. Let's head on to the tales. Our first tale is going to take us back to 2019, Douglas County, Oregon. Now, our witness is going by the name of S. S is a 70-year-old retired nurse. She's also a 27-year veteran of the United States Army and Navy. S had grown up in Oregon and was a real outdoors girl. She went hunting and fishing with her father. Very, very outdoorsy. S had been hunting and fishing ever since she could hold a gun or hold a fishing pole. And she always went with her father. Even whenever she's on active duty, whenever she has leave, she would come home for hunting season. And it's doubly beautiful for her because it's around her dad's birthday and her own birthday. The thing about S is she was a skeptic. She never believed anything like Sasquatch could even exist. She saw the Patterson film, convinced it was a fake. I've actually had fights with people, very, very public arguments. To me, the Patterson film is incredibly, incredibly genuine. But S, she thought it was fake. The last hunting season that she goes out with her father, before he could no longer hunt, it's going to be where this occurrence happens. And in this location, they've seen a ton of wildlife. Bears, big cats, elk, deer. Never anything unusual. Now, another bit sadder part of this story is anytime that she has a cat, and sadly, cats don't outlive us, usually. Whenever her cats would pass away, she would bury them in this area. One of her cats passes away June 18th, 2019. So on the afternoon of the 19th, she takes him to a little pet cemetery below Harness Mountain in Douglas County. She has her sidearm by her side. There are big cats. There are bear, other scavengers, and they're going to smell the cat that she has. They're going to see it as an easy meal. S is digging this grave, and she's almost done. But she hears something big moving through the brush. She thinks it's a bear. Now that breeze shifts, and she gets a whisk of this musky odor. She draws her pistol, chambers around. And then there's this loud grunt. And this stomping through the trees. It's big. It's snapping branches. It sounds, she said that the sound of its footsteps were like hollow drum beats. But she's got the gun. She's a veteran. She finishes digging the grave. This entire time she's digging this grave, this creature is circling her, stomping, grunting. There's this pond there, and it's opposite S across the pond. Whatever this thing is, and I think we all have a good idea of what this thing actually is, it picks up a rock the size of a medium watermelon and throws it across the pond at her. It splashes really, really close to where she's digging. S finishes the burial, doesn't really have any ceremony, stacks a few large rocks up on the grave. And then she has to hike back to her truck. She's carrying the shovel, I imagine a pickaxe, what have you. She loads the tools into the back of her pickup, and she gets ready to drive off, and there's this loud grunt. It's from a hill behind her. She gets into the truck, pulls out on the main road, and starts to drive away. She passes through a clump of brush. It's close to a swampy area. And this rock comes flying from the brush and hits her windshield. Knocks a big round chip out of it. Little bit further down the road, a long piece of branch hits the pickup, lands in the bed. She is being attacked. Now S speeds up and gets out of there. The rock that had hit the windshield, it had dropped down into the opening between the windshield and the rear edge of the hood. This rock, whatever tossed it, this rock was larger than a softball. And the branch that was thrown at her, 8 feet long, 4 inches thick. Now, okay, a softball, I could maybe toss a softball-sized rock. I'm not a very strong individual. A branch 8 feet long? No. And to be quite honest, a rock the size of a medium watermelon? I'd probably hurt myself even attempting to pick it up. Like I said, I'm not strong. I don't think there's very many humans out there that would have an easy time tossing these items, the branch, the rocks, tossing these items with any real accuracy or strength. S gets to safety, and she over the next few days she starts to reflect on this. And she comes to the conclusion there must have been more than one of them. Just based on the distance. S goes back a couple of weeks later. She wants to check on the grave. She wants to make sure it hasn't been dug up by a predator. She has time for the ceremony now. She plants some native iris. Now there are 3 graves up there of her cats. The new grave, it's untouched. But the other graves, on top of the 3 little graves, flat river rocks placed on top. Now, the nearest place that S knows of to get river rock around this area is a riverbed about 15 miles away. S decides it's time to leave. And as she's leaving, once again, another rock is thrown at her pickup. It lands in the bed, does no real damage. The rock was close to the same size as those being used on the newer logging roads in the area. What S believes happened was This was the summer of 2019. It was a dry year, and a lot of the springs had dried up. This pond may have been the only access to water. And these creatures, they were trying to scare her away from the water so that they could have it for themselves. I've seen what I believe to be Bigfoot twice. And once was in a pond. It was standing like calf deep in a pond. I don't know of any creatures other than primates that would throw rocks, especially with that type of accuracy. I mean, okay, cougars aren't going to throw rocks, bears aren't going to throw rocks, deer aren't going to throw a rock, moose. What else could it have been? Whatever it was a primate. Now, hey, I'm all up for maybe this was feral human. But if it was a feral human, then the strength on this thing must have been massive. The size must have been massive. S starts to do a little bit of research. And she finds later, Sasquatch throw rocks, but whenever they do, they tend to lob them underhanded. But whatever it was that threw these rocks at her, it was thrown with a flat trajectory like a baseball. Now, my theory for that is, these were creatures desperate for water. The underhand lob is a scare away. But that overhand, that flat trajectory, that's a little bit more than scare away. That's get the hell away. We will kill you. Because it's our survival on the line. Get away from our water. Get off of our land. If you get the chance, there's a researcher out there named Mike Cleland. He's written an amazing book called The Messengers: Owls, Synchronicity, and the UFO Abductee. Owls seem to have a lot to do with the abduction phenomena. A lot of times there are abductees who will see an alien gray and then it morphs into an owl. And it keeps going on in their head. I'm an owl. I'm an owl. I'm an owl. Almost as if it's a way for the gray to camouflage itself. Segueing into that, in Mexico and Texas, since the 1820s, there have been sightings of amazingly large owls. Some even having faces like a human. Now, these creatures have been called La Lechuza. Now, according to the legend, Lechuza was a witch who practiced black magic, and for the practice of that magic, she was executed. After her death, Lechuza became a giant owl, but kept her face. There are other versions of the legend where it's a witch who's able to astral project themselves in the form of a giant owl. But It's said that if this type of Lechuza is killed while in owl form, their human body dies as well. So, if there's someone you don't like that dies in their sleep, and you killed an owl that night, hey, just saying that's a possibility. Lechuzas are usually described as a large owl with a wingspan of about 15 feet and a woman's face. Sometimes, though, they're said to be normal size, but with the face of a human woman. Now, the Lechuza, it likes to attack people who are wandering home drunk after a night. And it also has a fondness, I guess would be the way I'd put it, for children who are outside after the sun has gone down. It's said that if you see scratch marks on your door, then the Lechuza has marked you as a future victim. Here's another interesting thing. If you want to protect yourself against a Lechuza, you do so by hanging a rope with 7 knots in it outside your door. That's oddly like the vampire myth. Vampires, one of the ways to not defeat a vampire, but to kind of keep it busy until the sun came up and it would die, was to sleep with a net over you. Because vampires have an obsessive compulsive disorder. They cannot stand knots. And they have to untie them. So this rope with 7 knots, I find that very interesting. Recently, there was an encounter with La Lechuza. This man was driving with a friend on a dirt road just outside of El Tigre, Chihuahua. And suddenly, this La Lechuza, it began swooping down. It would attack his truck. It would hit the truck's windshield and bounce off. And then attack and bounce off. Finally, it fell onto the road in front of the truck. Now, this man, he ran over this creature and then reversed over it to make sure it was dead. He just drives down the road and he looks in the rearview mirror and he sees the Lechuza stand up, shake itself off, and come after him. The man, the driver, he has a heart attack right then and there, passes away. It was the man's friend who had reported the story to the local authorities. In the 1950s, near Nuevo Laredo, they would see a Lechuza. They saw it several times. These people were so desperate. This is 1950. These people were so desperate, they used a child as bait. The Lechuza sees this child, swoops down to grab him. The men of the town come out, guns blazing. They only manage to injure its claw. Now, the next day, according to the legend, the people of this town went to see a local woman who was known to practice witchcraft. They wanted to see if she knew anything about it. When they arrive, they see that her leg is severely injured. 1977, Santa Rosa, Texas. There's a La Lechuza. It's sitting in a tree, and it swoops down to a woman's front door and scratching at it like it wants to get inside. Now, this scratching sound, it attracts the neighborhood dogs who chase the La Lechuza away. The La Lechuza. The Lechuza. The next morning, all the neighborhood dogs dead. Dead. So, are we talking Are we talking about some sort of cryptid that people are mistaking for witchcraft? Is this the owl version of a thunderbird? Is it astrally projecting witches? Or are what we seeing, what others are seeing, the Lechuza, is this just another version of the skinwalker? Some sort of evil human who has gained the ability to shapeshift into the animal of their choice. Whenever we think skinwalker, I think most of us think wolves, deer, that sort of thing. But to my knowledge, there's nothing in the legend of the skinwalker that says they can't take the form of a bird. One of the main problems with hauntings is that, for the most part, we have to take the witness's word for it. There usually isn't a lot of evidence. The next case, however, tons of evidence. We're going to go back to 2006, the Moreno Valley, Southern California. Susan Lewis and her daughter Jamie, they're moving into their new house, and they love this house so much they call it the sanctuary. Now, Susan's boyfriend Matt, he soon moves in, as does his daughter Marie. Now, Susan and Matt, dream relationship. They get along great. And to make things even better, Jamie and Marie, Matt's daughter, they're around the same age and they get along great. It's idyllic. It's like a micro Brady Bunch, right? Everybody is getting along and is amazingly happy. A few weeks later, Susan's going into the kitchen. She's going to make food for the rest of the family. And they're out playing in the pool. Susan enters the kitchen and she sees a peanut butter jar, and it's tilted over on the kitchen counter. This peanut butter, it's almost as if someone has melted it and poured it out on purpose. So, the first thing in Susan's mind is Jamie and Marie, one of them or both of them, they're playing a prank. She goes, "Hey, which one of you poured out the peanut butter?" The kids just say, "None of us." Susan cleans up the mess. She doesn't want to spoil the mood, so she lets it go. She makes the food, goes back to the pool, has a great night with her family. That evening, they come back into the house. In the bathroom, the shampoo bottles are stacked on top of each other. The hairbrushes are arranged in a star pattern. The microwave, there's canned foods, there's stuffed animals from the kids' room. And the cleaning materials under the sink are arranged in a line according to height, right there on the kitchen floor. All over the walls, liquids, shampoo, soap, some stuff that was never identified. Matt and Susan, the father and mother, they think they have somebody in their house. We've all seen those terrible stories about, oh, well, food was missing. I set up a camera, and then somebody sneaks out of the attic, right? They think that's what's going on. They have an invader in their house. Matt and Susan, they go around filming everything. They hope that they're going to find somebody. And they find no one. In a weird turn, Matt starts to suspect it's Susan's daughter, Jamie. But Susan is suspecting that it's Matt's daughter, Marie. And the entire family unit starts to fall apart. Now you and I, we're sitting here going like, of course it's a ghost. This is ghost-like behavior, but they're in denial right now. They're trying to blame each other. They're thinking that they may have someone in the house. And why they didn't reach out to the police. A week later, Marie is in Jamie's room doing her homework. Jamie's having a nice cup of coffee. Coffee goes right through me, and apparently it does the same to Jamie. She puts the coffee on her table and goes to the bathroom. And when Jamie comes back out of the bathroom, her coffee has been poured all over the bed, and the coffee cup is just laying right on top of it. Tensions are high in this household. Jamie looks over at Marie and goes, "What in the world did you do this for? I'm tired of this." Marie, though, Marie was so focused on her work. The only time she lifted her head was whenever Jamie shouted at her, almost as if she'd been in a trance. White sheets, what are you going to do? It bleach, right? Jamie goes out of the room, takes a bottle of bleach, goes back in the room. She's going to clean up this mess. She puts the bleach bottle on the floor, gets on top of her bed, picks up the coffee cup, and she gets down from her bed. Her closet drawers are open. The bleach bottle is open, and the bleach is poured all over her clothes. Marie looks so guilty to Jamie. And Jamie starts screaming at her. Susan runs into the room. As soon as Susan enters, a picture on the wall falls down. Susan's just thinking, well, there's a lot going on. I run in here. Whatever. It could have happened. Another picture falls off the wall. The three girls, Susan, Marie, Jamie, they go, okay, that's odd. And they run out of the house. They get into the car. Susan starts driving away. Their fear kind of settles a little bit. And then they come back to the house. When they get back to the house, just like a while back, food cans are all over the stairs. Now, Susan knows both of her daughters are with her. The three of them are now convinced something is going on. There's something wrong with this house. Matt returns from work. Susan, the girls, they explain everything to him. And he shoots it all down. He doesn't listen to them. He's a complete skeptic. He tells Susan, the girls are just pranking you, and you're feeding them. He's angry. And Susan and Matt go to bed angry. But that night, the doors are just opening, closing, opening, closing, opening, closing, over and over and over. The burner on the stove keeps being turned on and off, on and off, on and off. And the sound is ringing through the house. Susan, Marie, Jamie, both of them, all of them covered up in horror. And Matt's just sitting there. Boy, talk about denial. Matt's sitting there blaming the girls. Do you see how bad this is? Susan can't even turn to the man she loves. Susan talks about this to one of her friends. Thank God Susan had a friend, right? Her friend suggests kind of like this, I don't want to call it a sacrifice, I don't want to call it a spell. She goes, why don't you get this thing a gift? So I guess that's what I'll call it. I'll call it a peace offering. She doesn't know why, but she goes and purchases a little cat figurine. Now remember, Matt's a complete skeptic. Matt's at work though. He's not in the house. So she has a small window of time in which she can do this. So she puts this little cat figurine on a table and she lights up a few candles. She doesn't really know what to do. So she just keeps saying, please accept this gift and leave us alone. Please accept this gift and leave us alone. Over and over and over. It's at this point, though, Matt comes back to the house. He sees this cat figure. He sees what Susan's doing. And he blows up. He just starts screaming at Susan right in front of the daughters. And he lifts up the cat finger and throws it out the window. Now, this entire time, Susan and the girls are pleading, tears in their eyes. Please don't do this. This is just going to make things worse. Matt doesn't listen. Now, that cat figure that Matt throws out the window, it reappears on the table. Matt, in what can only assume to be a grand delusion, thinks that the girls are pranking him. So this time, instead of throwing it out the window, Matt smashes it on the floor. Don't you get the feeling that this is what Bill Nye or Neil deGrasse Tyson would do in this situation? So later that night, one of the daughters, Jamie, she's in the kitchen. It's the middle of the night. She's got kind of a late night craving. She turns the light on in the kitchen, and the word cat is written all over the walls. Now Jamie runs to her mom's room. She brings Susan and Matt out to the kitchen, and Matt immediately starts blaming Jamie. Like, immediately. It's amazing how blind Matt is to this. Matt starts a fight with Susan. Because, how dare you let your daughter behave this way, you know. Things start to be dumped out of the drawers. The house is a complete mess. They fight for a few minutes. Susan and Matt decide they're going to clean up the mess. While they're cleaning, they find a footprint on the kitchen floor. This footprint is huge. It's bigger than any of the feet of the members of the family. Matt is still in denial. Susan just wants to leave. But you know what? They got no choice. They have to stay because leaving this house would financially ruin them. It gets to a point that The girls, Susan, the daughters, they stay in their rooms all day out of fear. One day, Matt's daughter Marie, she's left alone for a couple of hours. Matt and Susan have no choice. So Marie is sitting alone in the hall. She's watching TV. The TV, click, 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 click. It's rhythmically turning on and off. Click, 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 click. There's about a dozen of these times. And then the TV turns, click, completely off. Marie thought that the TV was faulty. She reaches out to a table to pick up the remote. She almost touches it, and that remote flies away, like somebody had knocked it away from her. Marie sits there, just terrified, frozen in fear. And that's whenever the rocking chair starts to rock. It's almost as if there was somebody there that was invisible. They knocked the remote away, then sat down in the chair and was staring at Marie. While this chair is rocking, the pictures on the wall start falling down. Now, Marie and Jamie, they have a digital camera with them all the time. Marie starts capturing pictures of the room as the pictures keep falling. Finally, like fear overtakes her, and Marie runs out of the room. They call Susan and Matt, going, please come home as soon as possible. The couple rush back home. The house is in shambles. Susan holds Marie, tells her, calm down. And then they take a look at the pictures Marie took. These pictures, they're showing some really odd lights moving around the room. This is what it takes. This is finally what it takes. Matt goes, yeah, there's something wrong with the house. So that's what it takes. Fast forward a week. Jamie's all alone in the house. She's in her room and she starts to hear somebody pounding hard at her door. The door just keeps on rattling as this thing is pounding at it. Deep down in her soul, Jamie feels, I have to get out of this room. I have to escape. So she walks slowly towards the doorknob. And as she's about to open the door, the pounding stops. The entity is waiting in the hallway. Jamie decides that she's going to go back to her bed and just curl up, tuck up. For 3 hours, pounding at the door. Jamie had her camera and she was able to film it. The pounding stops after 3 hours. She opens the door. She walks out of the room. The hallway is filled with pans, knives, forks, pots, skillets, spoons. The hinge on her door was bent. The doorknob was twisted and bent downwards. The lights in the bathroom near her room, they're flickering. Now that bathroom door, it doesn't have a doorknob. But it was one of those half-finished things where it had the hole for the doorknob. We've all been in homes. Some of us have lived in homes like this. Jamie runs back to her room. She gets strings from her door. She puts them through the hole in the door and shuts it closed. She thinks that she's captured it. Something in her head saying, "You got it. You caught it." But then the door started to open all by itself. She held these strings tight. She kept the door shut using her entire body weight, but the string tore and she went flying back into her room. And then that door shut all by itself. As she's cowering in her room, she hears all those pots, pans, spoons, knives. They're hitting against the wall. They're hitting on each other. Then they stop. But that's when she smelled the smoke. She runs out of her room. Something's on fire. There's paper strewn all over the place. Some of these pieces of paper were set on fire. Jamie smothers them. Now these paper pieces, they lead her into the hall. And all these pieces of paper, they're all over the house. This entity tried to light the house on fire using the paper as kindling. Jamie breaks. She runs out of the house and she sits on the doorstep until the rest of the family returns. She tells them everything that happens, shows them the footage. This is it. This is the last straw. The family moves out of the house knowing they'll go bankrupt. But here's the truly weird thing. A few days after they move out, half a dozen of their neighbors move out of their houses as well. That blows my mind. My father tells the tale told. My father's since long passed on. His second wife, my mother was my dad's third wife. His second wife died of pancreatic cancer. And he experienced phenomena in the house that he lived in. It was a house in Frostburg, Maryland. He experienced a lot of strange phenomena, objects missing. Much like this case, TVs changing channels by themselves way back before the time anybody ever had a remote control. The story goes, if you can humor me for just a second, my younger brother and sister, way before I was born, after their mother had died, one night they wanted to see a movie. I remember the name of the movie, The Mounts of Kilimanjaro, right? Well, my dad had already seen it. He didn't want to watch it, so he changed the channel. But then, and this is one of those TVs, you have to get up and turn the knob by hand. There is no remote control. He sits back down. The TV changes the channel back to The Mounts of Kilimanjaro. And he said the movie was not the same movie he remembered. It was a completely different movie entirely. Dad couldn't take it anymore. He moved out of the house. And every time it was something that we did. Every time that we would go through Frostburg, we would drive past my dad's old house. And it was sold a lot. It was sold a lot. Something was in that house, scaring people out. And whatever was in Susan and Matt's house, whenever it had scared out its occupants, it scared out the other occupants around them. Now, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. We are at a war with the paranormal. I'm absolutely 100% convinced. The Bridgewater Triangle keeps getting larger and larger and larger. The range of occurrences at the Skinwalker Ranch keeps getting larger and larger and larger. And whatever was in Susan and Matt's house, whenever it secured territory, it went and took more territory. That's war. Thank you for joining us again this week on Strange Pathways. Please do me a favor, head over to the Facebook page or the Twitter. We're going to have a lot of images up from this week's episode, especially from the Moreno Valley haunting. Head over to TikTok, Strange Pathways Podcast. Instagram, the same, Strange Pathways Podcast. Like I said, Twitter. But our Twitter is Pathways Strange. You can email us at strangepathwaysmail@gmail.com. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Thank you so much for listening. Take care of yourselves and each other.